We'll often find that Christian apologists present the so-called phenomenal growth of the church as an argument for the historical Jesus. What they claim is that the early church grew explosively and spread rapidly across the Roman world. Now, the only possible explanation for this world-changing development was that something truly amazing had really happened. In other words, what happened was Jesus and his resurrection. Well, it is an argument, and I'm sure it must reassure a great many Christians who are themselves blissfully ignorant of ancient history that their faith in Jesus isn't some vain and foolish delusion. But sadly, it is. Let's take a closer look at this audacious claim of phenomenal growth and examine it in detail. For a start, where do Christians get their information about the growth of the church? Well, they turn, of course, to their storybook, the New Testament, and in particular to the book of Acts. Now, we should remember that this is a book of fantasies, featuring multiple appearances of angels who intervene at crucial points, such as getting the apostles out of jail. Acts has its share of miracle healings and even raisings of the dead. So this is our historical source. In the book of Acts you will find 3 pertinent verses. In Acts 1:15 we are told that at the first Pentecost there were just 120 believers. In Acts 2:41, following Peter's first sermon, in a single day, 3,000 people, we're told, converted. And after the first apostolic miracle, those who heard and believed were said to be 5,000 men, which Christian apologists quite happily double to include an equal number of women and derive a figure of 10,000. Now, it has to be said, a movement that grew from 120 to 10,000 in a few weeks would indeed be phenomenal. But is there the remotest chance that these numbers are anything more than the fevered imagination of the writer? One yardstick is to consider the population of Jerusalem itself. The old walled city was less than a mile square. Now, 14th century London was also still largely confined by its Roman walls, which enclosed twice that size, and we know fairly accurately that London's population in the 14th century was 80,000. Therefore, Jerusalem's population almost certainly was in the region of 25 to 30,000 at the most. Now, wouldn't a Jewish or Roman historian or governor have noticed if perhaps a third or a half of the city had apostatized to a new faith? Yet they make no such observation. When you search for tangible evidence of early Christianity, you don't find it in Jerusalem and Palestine at all. The first evidence of Christianity is found scattered across the eastern regions of the empire. When the Roman historian and governor Pliny presented his first encounter with the Christians in the early 2nd century, it was on the shores of the Black Sea coast. We find early Christianity not in Jerusalem, but in Alexandria and in Roman Asia. The one thing that modern historical research has taught us is that in the earliest period, Christianity was not one movement, but a multiplicity of pseudo-Christian and proto-Christian groups. They emerged, as we might expect, from what had gone before. Jewish apocalyptic sects, solar deity cults, Mithraism, emperor worship, etc. The so-called phenomenal growth of the church is hot air. Even by the end of the 2nd century, the loosely organised and often rival groups ranged from a few dozen to several hundred in perhaps 40 or 50 cities of the Eastern Roman Empire. In total, they numbered perhaps 50,000 in an empire whose population was in the region of 60 million. The real growth of the church was not explosive and didn't occur until it became the official religion of the empire and it was prudent to aver an attraction for the Christ cult. The phenomenal growth of the church